$10,000.
Well, it isn't just a couple of nights in jail. I mean, you have to add to that the time and expense of going back and forth to court and the gas and the miles and all of the time.
And the stress.
Well, and the stress and the time that's spent for me to understand the law well enough that I can write intelligent pleadings. All of this took a lot of time. I would say, how did this compensate me? It began to pay the interest on the many debts that I accumulated during the several years that I was in legal difficulties. It didn't really go any further than that.
But one thing you did accomplish, though, was that Lawrence will train its police officers to handle these cases a little bit better. I
would trust not only Lawrence, but any police department ought to sit up and pay attention to this case. It was publicized in Massachusetts News, and the police departments, I would hope, talk to one another. So I would hope that this has been something that they have been studying. And furthermore, I have done my best to disseminate the various things I found out to as many people as possible so that they can, in turn, when they need to and when they have justification to, write their own lawsuits against their own respective police departments. So I would hope that the police departments are slowly going to get the word on this.
Are you using the internet much for your legal research?
I'm not in the legal research business anymore because I don't have any more open cases. At the time that I was doing the research for this particular false arrest case, one site I used extensively. This was a site that was recommended to me by the late Reverend Dennis Austin of North Carolina, who had his own matter going on with a child support matter in the state of Washington. I used Versus Law, and I was quite happy with it.
And what would you recommend for people who want to sue, or want to pursue constitutional issues in their domestic relations cases? What would you suggest they do to prepare themselves?
Be it domestic relations or any other kind of thing, they need to get a general idea of the way the law is built. They need to understand basic legal terms. They need a copy of Black's Law Dictionary. What they need to do is go and look at actual court pleadings. These are, this is not commonly known, but you can walk into any clerk's office and ask for the file on any given case. And you can then run off copies of this and you'll have sample pleadings. And you can basically borrow the format from these things and adapt it to your own case. And in the process,
that's what lawyers generally do.
Yeah, well, lawyers understand this. Most commoners don't. But
commoners. Come on.
Can I make a fashion statement? 2 seconds?
Yeah.
This is my uniform. Lawyers dress up in 2- or 3-piece suits when they plead. This is how I go before a judge. A nice tie, shirt, blue jeans.
There you have it. Fashion statement. Andrew, is there anything you'd want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I think you also have to understand which court you're dealing with and what the level of understanding of the law of the judge that you're going to be in front of.
What do you mean by that?
How would you do that if you're a novice to the law in the first place and you don't know one judge from another?
Well, I think federal courts, the judges understand the law. For sure, family court is the backwater of the court system. It's almost laughable to call it a court system. And you have to understand that the judges that you're talking to, more often than not, don't understand the law. And if you have a counsel opposing you, chances are that opposing counsel doesn't understand the law very well either.
You're saying that in your opinion, the lawyers who go to family court are somehow deficient?
Yes.
So what you could be saying also in that case is, if the lawyers themselves are deficient, then what are you really losing by representing yourself?
That's true.
And you're saving money besides.
Right.
Well, I think the one issue is that there is a sort of clubbiness that that I think does exist in some of the courts, where a pro se person isn't going to be taken as seriously as a represented person.
That's true.
And the representative you have ideally should be one that appears in that court often,
Correct.
because I think it really makes a difference. I mean, if suddenly a lawyer from Plymouth County shows up in your neck of the woods and out in Greenfield or North Adams, he might have some, not necessarily, but he might have some geographical discrimination. Did you want to say something, Joanne?
Yes, excuse me. After I made that initial complaint to the Chief Justice, I had been waiting in court. Every time I went, like you said, they just, made us wait 2-3 hours. But after I, made the initial complaint, I was first on the list. I couldn't believe it.
What did you say in your complaint?
I said that I went in and out court, and I had all my papers prepared, and there was other ladies there. They were all prepared to go forward for child support. I was there for grandparent visitation, and they made us wait and wait and wait, and the room would clear. And I said that they treated us like we were part of the wall. I said, this is not fair, when, we're here for a reason, And I said a lot more. I can't remember. Once you've been through this paper maze, you don't even want to touch it again. That's how I feel.
I know two individuals who have experienced the clubbiness that David was just talking about, but they have managed to overcome this obstacle. And how they've overcome this obstacle is very simple. They keep coming back. When the judges knock them down the first couple of times they're in the court, because the judges don't respect the fact that they're representing themselves, they don't take no for an answer. They don't allow themselves to lay on the floor. They get up and they continue to fight and fight and fight. And eventually they become such an irritant to the judges that they get the judges' very careful attention.
I think the important thing about that is you have to be respectful. You have to address them as your honor. You have to show some deference to the fact that they are elevated because they are judges.
When I said an irritant, I didn't mean to say that they were personally disagreeable to the judge. What I meant by irritating was that they wouldn't take no for an answer. They wouldn't allow the judge to push them around. They insisted on their rights. And eventually, when the judge realized that he wasn't going to, if he knocked them over, they weren't going to stay knocked over, then they would get more respectful attention.
Okay, I think that's a fair comment. Andrew, do you want to say something?
Yeah, along that same vein, it seems as though pro se litigants a lot of times are plaintiffs. And plaintiffs, as a matter of right, get to speak first in court. And one of the things as a pro se that the other side and the judge will even try to do is let the other side speak first. Unfortunately, family courts also a lot about who speaks first, who lies loudest and speaks loudest.
Lies loudest? Oh, come on.
Well,
I'm not saying that people
if you
go
have
there and lie,
if you have
do
the
they?
right to speak first,
Yeah.
as a plaintiff, and a lot of pro ses are plaintiffs in court, you should exercise that, and you shouldn't, as a pro se, allow the other side to state your case for you. Or in family court, they also have family service officers or family court officers. And as a pro se litigant, you'll be urged to allow just the court officer to address the judge and present the issues to the judge.
You mean the
And you
family
should-
services officer?
Correct, and you should push back against that. If you are the plaintiff, you have a right to speak first, and you have a right to speak for yourself, and don't let anybody make your case for you.
Do you have any opinions about the quality of people they have in the family service office? Does anyone have any thoughts about
Yes.
that? Joanne?
Yes, they're horrendous.
Please be a little bit closer to the microphone. Why do you say they're horrendous? Why do you say that?
I've had several run-ins with them, trying to work out issues in the family. I have a very large family, and when you go into the office, you're hoping to work something out, and what happens, it becomes very one-sided. The family service worker that I had did not listen to me at all. She told me straight out I had no rights, that my daughter did own my granddaughter. She was the same family service worker that represented another family member, and she had given custody to an abusive ex-husband. This is hard to explain. While the restraining order was in effect to keep this man away from this woman and this boy. And the two papers I had presented with my case, because it was the same family service worker, straight up to Supreme Court. And this child has never been seen since. He's been in and out of mental institutions. There was also another instance in the same family where they were supposed to, the same family service worker had court-ordered alcohol treatment for one side and drug treatment for the other side. This was mother and father, for the best interest of the children. There was never any follow-up, and those children were tormented by the alcoholism. The mother took the kids away, kept them away from the family, drove around drunk. She needed help. She was crying for help, and the family took care of it. But the court never picked up the phone to see if she followed up on that alcohol. She ended up dead down in Florida, shot in the stomach. Now, these children don't have a mother. Until this day, they never followed up. I think they're highly negligent. They're very one-sided. They really don't have the qualifications to make judgments that they do. And they have no accountability at all, which is the worst part.
Well, I guess they're certainly immune from suit, it would appear, in terms of accountability. Andrew, do you want to say anything about that?
I've had varied experiences with the family service officers. Some are good, some are bad, and unfortunately, as a pro se person, that is going to take some time for you to become familiar with the court if you're going to be in family court as a pro se. Become familiar with the court personnel, not just the judges, but also the family services officers, and know which ones you'll talk to, or which ones you should talk to, and which ones you shouldn't, and know which ones are willing to be unbiased, and which ones have a predetermined opinion as to what should happen with children. You can't. There's no way around the experience of having to meet these folks and occasionally suffer through a bad one.
Now, these family service workers, they make the decisions, and then they hand it over to the judge, and the judge just makes judgment. And lots of times they make big mistakes, and they just walk away. And I just don't understand why it goes on. I mean, this is why we've become so active, all of us, in different areas.
So you have a website now,
Yes.
freethegrandchildren.com. What's the purpose of that website?
The initial purpose was to offer other grandparents help. My case had gone on for so long, and it's very hard to deal with not seeing your grandchild, especially when you've raised them and loved them. And it's like having your own child, except it's removed once and